Thanks for being here this year. My name is Pat Wallace.
I'm Bernd Gruer.
And I'm Morakat Piluk.
And we're going to talk about extending ArcGIS Indoors for smart connected buildings. Kind of have a jam-packed agenda. How many of you have seen any of the ArcGIS Indoors presentations so far? So about half of you, right? So I don't know if it looks familiar, go like this, right? Because it's jam-packed, and I'd like to spend more time on some of the interesting work we've done with the data. So let's get started. So when we think about it, organizations allocate over 80% of their budget to employees and their resources. And this is true for any organization. On top of that, nearly 2/3 of organizations rely on disconnected email, pen, paper, and project files to carry out workplace planning and day-to-day operations. So the genius trick we came up with was to say, well, why don't we take that workplace map and use it as a lens to better understand the workplace, see all the activities that are happening within it, and all the resources that those activities are consuming, so that we can optimize current operations and do better planning for near-term, mid-term, and long-term operations. So Indoors, it's a complete indoor mapping solution made so that you can easily find workplace information no matter where it is, in a room, between floors, between buildings, between sites, etc. Work happens in a lot of places. We have 2D and 3D maps and visualizations, as well as accurate positioning. It supports employee mobility, so you can quickly find your next meeting, meet up with important colleagues, collaborate more efficiently, get to the space you want to get to, find the amenities you need to get to in order to continue work. It also allows you to monitor security and ensure continuity of operations, providing complete asset visibility across the organization. This includes real-time device tracking to enable rapid response in case of an event, or incident rather. It also increases planning productivity as well as operational productivity. So you can save time addressing the latest workplace data, such as space type, allocation, utilization, directly via your workplace map, whether that's in 2D or 3D. So I'm going to give you a quick demo of some of the tech. So let me hop out of this. Forgive me for changing my monitor setup. And we'll just go to single display. So this is the ArcGIS Indoors web application. If you know exactly what you want to look for, you just type in what it is that you want to look for, right? So I could look for Morakat. And right now, the home location is set for the receptionist at the main corporate building at the Esri campus in Redlands. Once I do that, there's a series of actions that are presented to me, plus pertinent details about Morakat, his bank account number, his social security, his mother's maiden name, etc.
Database.
You need to put that in there.
Yeah.
So, and then there's a series of related items. So it's really whatever you want it to be, right? The workplace is a lens to better understand what in the world is going on. This could be work orders, it could be assets. Right now, it's the office, the floor, so I can find out what's on OA3, right? So I can see how big the floor is. I can see everybody on the floor. I can see all the assets on the floor. All right, so let's actually go back, right? So I can go back through the panel here, and let's just say that I want to share Morakat's location with a colleague, because we need to meet up there to finish this awesome presentation for the Dev Summit, right? So
At the last minute.
Not at the last minute, Morakat. So I'm going to paste it in here. All right, you guys get the picture. I can smart launch the application, so you can do a lot with this information. And you'll have to forgive the speed. I'm remoting back in through Redlands. So here we are. So I can share a precise location with a colleague. I can also do other things. Let's say I found Morcott. I found that he was defective, and so I could kick off a work request to get Morcott fixed.
Working day and night.
Working day and night, yeah. So I'd log in, and I would pull up this survey. This would go to your work order system of preference, right? So the cool thing here is that I preloaded it with the indoor location information that's pertinent, right? In a really super accurate XY, right? So I'm like, what is that, millimeters? All right, so here we go back to the app. So I looked for something because I knew exactly what it was. I can also get a route from that to that, rather. We do other things with the network data set besides routing. We use it to provide relevant results, right? Just like with other, familiar mapping applications that are out there. We do the same thing, right? So I get human readable directions. So I'm not going to labor too much upon the navigation aspect. I think we all get that. The next thing I want to show you is that this is our Explore capability, and you can find whatever the heck you want, right? And this is all totally configurable as well. We decided to put people, places, things, retail and services, and so on. So a neat thing I'll show you is that, I set my home location at that receptionist desk. So if I know I'm already headed back there and I want to go to the nearest conference room close to that receptionist desk, I found it, right? I'm using that same network data set to provide relevant results, right? So, I could drive to that location, right? So I'm already creating efficiencies in how I'm going to go through my workday. The other thing that I want to make note of is this idea of events. It's like a point of interest, and points of interest are what we dump into this Explore functionality, but this has a time component, right? So I don't have like a huge test data set here, but I can look for the different events. I can slice through it by day. I call this our human readable time slider, a calendar, right? So I can find what I want today at a certain time by type. Let's say it's this that I want to go to. I could have a picture up here or a carousel of pictures, and I could have a really long description, and I'd read it and I go, man, I really want to go to this event. And then I can just add it to my calendar, right? So I download the ICS file, open it up, and it's added to my calendar. And then this creates a virtuous cycle with the mobile application. So quickly before I jump to the next steps, I just want to show you some of the things we've done to aid in understanding this workplace map. So you can quickly go back and forth between 2D and 3D, and we save that view. So let's see if I can go back here. Let's just tilt it a little bit. And so what I can do now is I can use some of these navigational aids to minimize the amount of time I have to explore in 3D, right? And just make it more efficient. And we have these other aids, so I can quickly understand what's going on in the different buildings on the site, and make selections as required. So maybe I'm no longer interested in building Q, I'm interested in L, for example. Or maybe this building next to it. So note the floor picker, right? So it understands the context, this building's context. And those are the highlights,
really
right?
Cool,
yeah, it's amazing. So let me hop back out of this so that we had a quick demo. And I will take this off of Mirror.
It's this one.
Yeah. And hop back to our wonderful slide deck. So who are the user personas that we're building this for? These are characters we all know and love in our day-to-day life at our workplace. There's owner, there's an operator, CEO, or agency executive. There are knowledge workers, there's field workers, there are occupants, visitors, employees, students, etc. And there's your map makers. The focus of release 1 is the occupant and the map maker. This, Indoors will add more capabilities post the 1.0 release to provide, needed capabilities for these other user personas, like, managing POIs within the Indoors web application interface, for example, as well as within the mobile application. So first release capabilities, I did talk about some of them, but on desktop, the ability to load CAD floor plans into a geodatabase, the ability to create a floor-aware indoor routable network, the ability to do indoor wayfinding from the web and native mobile application, the ability to support indoor positioning systems to show the user's current location in an indoor map, and the ability to track the location of devices in real time, as well as location sharing, which I demonstrated in the live demo. So it's a complete indoor mapping system, right, from desktop to enterprise and portal, GeoVent server, the web components. There's a regular mode for the web that I showed you, and you can go to kiosk mode with big fat buttons that you can put in the lobby of iconic buildings that are part of your business enterprise, or in any buildings that need it, or at an event like the UC or Dev Summit or shopping mall. That's right. And these all connect together to the native applications, iOS, Android, which can make use of indoor positioning systems, as well as plans for off-the-shelf third-party data integration. So, and I talked about all that. So let me talk about some of the components real quick. Indoor information model, right, that sits at the heart of the system. It's pretty straightforward. It makes sense if you think about a building or sets of buildings, where buildings are. You have sites, you have facilities, you have levels, you have sections, which is like the north side of a building or the south side, zones, which can overlap, sections can't, as well as units. There's a floor plan, it supports floor plan feature hierarchy. It supports, routing with a network data set. It also has points of interest, which I talked about, events, and tracking zones. And we'll talk more about that with regard to how the indoor positioning system works.
You forget people?
People are not at the 1.0 kind of burned into the data model. Mm-hmm. You create them as part of a tool set that we provide. In fact, you can think of them as a type of point of interest.
Right.
Okay. So I talked about the kiosk mode and the regular mode. Kiosk can be viewed on a tablet or a big touch screen. So it supports search, category exploration that I went through. It also supports indoor routing. Again, it supports the Survey 123 integration. The email location sharing, favorites and history. I didn't really talk too much about that in my demo, but it's there. It also supports anonymous use, right? So using standard ArcGIS portal techniques for managing and sharing data, right, with groups who have access to that data. We honor all of that.
Right.
It also supports organizational branding. So if you think about the app, it has a really nice, simple way to edit the style and provide your color when you depress the button, press the button, as well as your own logo. And also supports simple web printing for the directions. And again, it's 2D and 3D. The mobile applications do everything that the web application does, except printing.
In the future.
I'm trying to imagine that use case. Right? So, it also adds portal map selection, so you can select any map that's shared with you through the application itself. Plus indoor positioning, right? It makes use of the information directly on the device to do that, as well as provide device tracking. And because it is on your device, you have access to your calendar, right? So if you have location information that corresponds to the workplace map, the system makes use of it. And then it has access to the events calendar that I mentioned before and demonstrated previously. And it supports, like I said, indoor positioning. Right now in 1.0, we'll get more into this in parent section, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi positioning, as well as GPS, right? So it doesn't stop showing you the blue dot once you walk outside. It also, in Pro, has geoprocessing models to batch process, your CAD floor plan data to the data model. So it provides a tool to create the data model, and then you can load all your DGN and DWG drawings into it. And now we're getting to people points. Yes, we've all been reduced to points. So we can turn people into points, and then that way they can utilize
locate people.
They can utilize the framework that's been created for this Explore functionality. Also, tools to almost in a fully automated way create the network, but there's about 4 steps. There's some QA in between that you want to check to pull it all together. So it cookie cutters out traversable areas from non-traversable once you create the core of the indoor map. So we have high aspirations on our roadmap because we're getting a lot of great feedback from users, and they have really interesting use cases. And this just gives you an idea of some of the things that we're looking at. We can talk more about that during the Q&A session and after as well. So I already provided a demo of the web application, so I want to show you a video real quick of the mobile. This is what iOS and Android will look like. This is on I guess this is iOS. Yep.
It's iOS.
Yep. So it looks just like Android now, so it took a while.
Really close.
So here we're going through the calendar component. And then now we're going to look at the different Explore capabilities. So you're seeing some familiarity between the web and the mobile, and that's right. It shares a visual language that we want to pull across, right? Mm-hmm. So if you know how to use this, you should know how to use the other as well.
You have turn-by-turn navigation.
That's right, turn-by-turn directions.
It's voice prompting as well.
Okay.
Yep. We
got to get it to show up on my watch now.
Next few weeks.
So here we're getting into the settings that are available at the 1.0. So as Moorcott noted, we can pick any map that we need to. So here Moorcott flipped, down to the San Diego map that we have. And you can see how you have this context-sensitive floor picker as well.
Right. It's a smart building and floor awareness.
Yep. Mm. So again, pulling up the details about it and related items.
That's it.
And that's it for my super quick demo of the native application.
Good job.
And there's more. And then in this part of it, we have some blue dot capability on the Redlands campus. So just kind of show you that. So here's the cool thing with that is that you can start seeing the search results, priority order change. So, right. And then I'll get out before I go in an infinite loop. So next slide. So let's talk about making the workplace smart.
Thanks, Pat. I'm going to take over from here.
Okay.
So while I'm here, hi, I'm Bernd, by the way. Was just part of the latest Esri Indoors acquisition. We at Indoors, we provide blue dot capabilities, and now are bringing all this indoor positioning capabilities basically in the ArcGIS platform. starting with the ArcGIS Indoors product. So what you see here is you see the system diagram that Pat already showed before, and I'm going to go now a little bit into details about what's this IPS, this indoor position about, as well as how you all can use it using the ArcGIS Indoors product. So it's fair to say next slide. So what is an indoor position and what's it really about? So first of all, an IPS is a system to locate objects or people inside of a building. And you can think of it like in two ways. One is active, so the device reports the indoor position. You can think of it like this, that the device itself computes its own position and sends it back to a server. And how this works is you've got devices or Wi-Fi or setup, and your phone itself computes its own position. In our case, and this is a picture that Pat's just showing, this was last year at UC, at the user conference in San Diego, and we set up in an indoor positioning system.
Exhibit hall, right?
In the exhibition hall, yeah, correct. Yeah. So, and then the second bit is passive. So you've got assets running around, you've got people running around, you want to track them using kind of a gateway infrastructure. And this capabilities we bring to the table as well. And why is it needed? So why do we need indoor positioning? Well, GPS doesn't work inside of buildings, so you got no coverage, more or less, inside of a building because you've got no connection to the satellites. And yeah, it's really now about getting all these GIS use cases indoors. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to show you a little bit of an overview of what IPS systems are out there in the field, and you can see two axes. One is costs, more or less, to set something up, and the other one is the accuracy, because those are like the key KPIs we always reference IPS, we always reference indoor positioning system against. So the first one is, and it's quite a traditional one, is cell tower GSM localization. It's not that accurate, actually. 5G will change that, no question. We just had one in... There was just a presentation, or quite a lot of presentations in Barcelona at the Mobile World Congress about 5G, what's upcoming with the new 5G standards. And it will be amazing for indoor positioning, but this will be down a couple of years. So we're not talking about usage within 2019 or even 2020. The second one is GPS. So yeah, assisted GPS still sort of works indoors, but the accurate is not really great, not for the use cases we were aiming for. The next two technologies going to talk about are Wi-Fi and Bluetooth Low Energy. So Wi-Fi, as we all know, is quite ubiquitous nowadays everywhere, and Bluetooth Low Energy giving you a higher accuracy. It's like those, some of you have heard about those beacons, iBeacons, sometimes already in a building, sometimes they come with some hardware you already install, sometimes you need to set them up additionally. And those really get you to the point where you can say, okay, this is usable for mobile wayfinding, for instance, or for people tracking. So you get the 2 to 5 meter level of accuracy depending on which technology you use. And then there are the, I would say, upcoming stars, or the really accurate ones that need more CapEx and OpEx, so that need more invest on your end. Speaking about them, that's, for instance, VLC, so visual light communication, light or luminaires that are set up within your building and give you really great accuracy using an IPS system. Next slide, please. So ArcGIS Indoors Positioning System version 1. When we go live, when there is the release, which one will we support? We will support in the first release, as Pat already said, 2 types of IPS. One is BLE, so based on Bluetooth Low Energy, iBeacons, and the second one is based on Wi-Fi. The third one, obviously, is GPS, so we've always got a GPS fallback. If you, for instance, just look at the Esri campus, you go outside of a building, you don't want to have an extra IPS set up in the outside areas, so you just seamlessly switch to GPS. And as soon as you enter a building again, you got an IPS back, and all of this, by the way, is handled by the Esri system. So someone doesn't have to worry about, okay, there is this IPS, there's that IPS, then there is GPS outdoors. No, we will take care of this all, and we automatically give you the best location there is. And for the start, so who's behind this? For the BLE, we'll use the indoor system, which was developed by my old company, and for Wi-Fi, we use the Apple IPS. speaking about the future, speaking about the outlines, we really want to support all the IPS, all the tier 1 IPS systems that are out there. So not only having BLE and Wi-Fi, but also having support for VLC, visual light communication, having support for geomagnetic. We really want to introduce and get all the tier 1 IPS providers into the platform so that they can be seamlessly used in the ArcGIS Indoors system, but there will always be some custom IPS connectors. So there is always this one indoor positioning that has a niche market in some, I don't know, industry that we haven't deep dived in. So there will always be the possibility to use a custom IPS connector on top if there's an IPS we want to use additionally. So with that saying, I'm going to hand over actually to Marka.
You can switch. Okay, thank you. Is it coming?
Yep, let's switch.
Okay, let me press play. You see how good Apple's doing.
There we go.
Cool. Yep. So, I've been, actually my background working in 3D since 1996 and with real-time teams with GeoEvent for the last 10 years and these last 3 years with Indoors. So it's exciting to bring our 3D, real-time and Indoors together and make it connected. And since we already learned about how to make the workplace smart, right? Mm-hmm. So now we want to connect to that. So we bring Indoors with real-time GIS so that we have a connected system that can respond to the user and to all the events that we want. So I'm going to give the overview of how that work together, right? So I believe that you might be learning quite a bit about the real-time GeoEvents already. So this is typical architecture diagram that in the ArcGIS Enterprise, how the real-time is stacked, the entire technology stack that you see. GeoEvent is on the lower left, and then we also have spatial temporal big data store on the right. So any data that come into GeoEvent can also go into the big data store. I'm going to go through this few slides pretty quickly, since I'm assuming that you already learned about it. For the visualization part, we're relying on the ArcGIS typical web map and other applications. Indoors is part of it too. We have the application that can display data that's coming from that layers, right? So you see this nice animation. I didn't do it. My colleagues did. Yeah, so all kind of sensors or data source in real time that flow into GeoEvent. ArcGIS Indoors is another one that we're also pushing data to GeoEvent, using one of the connectors in GeoEvent, of course. And you see the GeoEvent can do real-time processing or analytics as well. You can put filters, you can put enrichment, or you can do a lot of other stuff to enrich your data or to filter or to detect the alert, geofencing, things like that. So this is an example of geofencing. And we're going to use that quite a bit in the case of facility management or facility monitoring. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that also means that we kind of extend the capability of ArcGIS Indoors. Using real-time GIS, you can also extend ArcGIS Indoors with some other thing. So if you are developers, I believe that you have a lot of opportunities in the future to extend ArcGIS Indoors, whether on the hardware side or the software side, right? Yeah. So I'm going to get into the case studies that we do a real-world deployment of how to make the workplace smart and then connect it with the real-time system. So we have two use cases or case studies. The first one with Redland Campus that we deploy, I believe, 150 plus BOE. You remember that? Mm. Yeah.
Roughly, yeah.
So we got the team over here that's sitting somewhere. Also here that goes stick all these beacons around the buildings every 20 feet, if I recall, 20, 30 feet.
Yeah,
apart. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That because of the range of the shortwave radio that the beacon produces that range, right? So you want a little bit of overlap to maintain the signal strength. We also have the Apple Wi-Fi enabled in Redland campus, just because we already have Wi-Fi router everywhere. So we can do cell phone device connections, right? We did some surveying using the Apple technologies to enable that. I think Pat can give you a little bit of detail after this. Yeah. And have Esri devices. At the user conference last year, we deployed over 300 beacons or more.
On the showcase floor.
Showcase floor, the trouble we had, we couldn't stick the beacon on the wall or structure. We had to stick it on the billboard. So that's kind of interesting deployment. And we also did the Apple Wi-Fi surveying all the floor in the in convention center. Mm-hmm. And we got more than 100 plus people that signed up and used the beta version to test. And we did the anonymous data collection at that time. I'm going to show the data later on. So here are the deployment steps that I want Pat to sort of talk to a little bit.
Okay. So when you start using ArcGIS Indoors, part of it is for desktop, and in the desktop toolkit there is a zip file which contains like a geodatabase with a template feature service. And in order to establish device tracking for your organization, there's a configuration table. And we actually, right now, we store it in the map, right? So it shows up as a standalone table that moves along with the mobile map package or with the map image service itself. So we recommend using the map image service, just better performance, et cetera. And so that'll wind up in the web map. I'm going to focus on mobile right now. Mm-hmm. So in the mobile, once we upload this templated feature service, it will publish in your organization, and you can name it whatever you want. Pat's device tracking for my organization, and for you, it's going to be whatever the use is, right? So you can have a lot of device tracking feature services that you set up, and we're recommending feature service right now, just because you can lock it down better than you otherwise could if you're just pushing out directly to GeoEvent. And from that feature service, you can pull it and create, stream service from that. Right. So it's really straightforward, honestly. So you grab the URL from Portal and you just paste it into the standalone table in your ArcGIS Indoors map that you're going to publish. Right. So if we need to, we can go through those steps later, but we really just want to get to the data part of it. So in the configuration, you can also specify the period by which you want to push out the track points, right? Mm-hmm. So you could do it, every second or every 5 seconds or every minute. It's your choice, depending on, you really got to look at your architecture, right? Can your physical architecture support the load of data that's going to come in? Mm-hmm. So, initial testing, load testing of this is telling us that you're going to need at least 6 servers associated with GeoEvent to support pushing a point out every second for 1,000 users. Mm-hmm. So you probably may not want to configure it that way, and you can think about it as like a linear progression as well. Mm-hmm. So go from 1,000 to 10,000, right? There are consequences to the physical architecture that you need.
Load balancing and everything. So you can stop by the real-time GS booth, talk to those guys that are expert in the field. So for the deployment steps, after the step that Pat's telling, there are a number of configurable, I would say, items that you can do. We also have to create map packages that the mobile, if you want to use it for mobile applications, because you have to download on the device you have to start to work with it, right? So that's the step.
Correct. Yeah.
And we have all the tools to automate or semi-automate that.
That's right. So, I mean, the the release will come with some template maps, right, to show you the best practice. And you'll be able to see, along with the documentation, the user documentation is really robust. Like what fields need to populate. One of the important ones for positioning, right, is once you decide what type you want, whether it's Wi-Fi based or BLE based, and they have different levels of accuracy that can support different business use cases, you're going to want to use generate the token for ELSS, the Esri Smart Locator.
Yep. Right.
So it generates a unique ID that's specific to your site, right, and to your authorization for indoors. And then you take that ID, and that becomes part of the map package as well.
Yeah. Okay. So and then the step of setting up IPS that Bern already talked about, and you have to do the real work. All right, so I'm going to show, this is the San Diego Convention Center, I think. Let me see, there's a movie attached to this.
There you go.
That's right.
Okay. So you can see that exhibit halls and all the site is pretty big. And in the big walking open space, it challenged to do routing as we know it. So we have go through to devise the grid to help the navigations, to help the routing. Let's see how far it's going to go. So you can turn on and off different floor and different details. And identify, I think I might want to skip this just to get the idea. And this is an example of the 3D routing that you can see that it routes from the above floor down the stair and go to the lower floor pretty nicely. It's impressive. Even for me who has a background in 3D. I'm going to skip over this part that Bern already talked about, that you see how the beacons are installed and light up. So this is a step. So that was the San Diego, but this one is in our campus, in Redland campus. We also stick the beacon on the wall permanently this time, especially on my wing because I had to do development.
Right. And these beacons last about 4 years, right? Unless there's direct connection to power.
Right. Yeah. And we have about 150 plus beacons. And we also have this Wi-Fi router on the ceiling as well. Yeah, and the spacing of this Wi-Fi router are much further away than beacon because of the radio signal strength is really high. And here you see the result of data collected from that beacon, and you see the dots are right on the floor correctly and on the ground, right, in the 3D buildings. So we're pretty happy about that. Especially when you see that the dots are along the corridor, it doesn't cut through walls. Everything is the accuracy is pretty good. What about the accuracy of BLE?
The accuracy of BLE, I would say,
3 feet.
No, 2 to 3 meters. So
2 to 3 meters.
Yeah, so 6 to 9 feet.
And for the Wi-Fi, it varies about 10 feet away, 10 meters.
Yeah,
something
it can
like
go up
that.
to 5 to 10 meters.
And these device tracks are these are Z features.
Yeah.
So they're coming out natively as Z features that you can use.
It is important to recognize what floor you're at rather than what elevation you are at, because the higher up the buildings are different from building to buildings.
Yeah.
Like this one, how many feet? Like 20?
Yeah, it's 20 something. Yeah.
And in Redlands, just 4 point something meters. I don't remember. Okay. So we also did some real-time detection alerting, like set up the geofence, push the device location feed into UEVent and come up with some sort of dashboard to show the alerts, like how many times the device is entering or exiting the...
Was this an alert to alert you to people coming near your office?
near you.
Nah, in
your
the wings.
Yeah.
Like perhaps it's coming to visit me, then I know ahead of time.
The typical use cases we hear are for this are associated, it seems predominantly with security operations.
Yeah.
Right.
Areas where safety is critical, right? So life, limb, or some type of security response, or understanding flow of crowds, right?
Yep. So, yeah, we saw the data coming through in real time, and now we can store that to I would say, relational may not be able to cut it. We need a big data store that provide a much better response time. Like the technologies that we build into these spatial temporal big data store, Adam is here, who is the lead for that development. We could query hundreds of thousands of rows or features back in just a few seconds. So this will make the app respond improve the response time to the user. And I'm sure you're already familiar with this diagram. And spatial temporal big data store also do on-the-fly binning for you. So it's do all kind of spatial indexing to make it go really fast. Geoanalytics can work on top of the big data store. So in the future, you can have tools that if you want to reconstruct track or you want to do heat maps with the massive data amount. Imagining that, over time data going to be piled up, right?
Well, we should talk about the floor-aware attributes, right? So if you want to use ArcGIS Indoors, we just gave an example of, and we were just using the beaconing as an example of this type of edge system. And there are others, right? Like pulling and building automation data, et cetera. You're going to want to start to bend that data by this workplace map to understand what in the world is going on. Because when you want to understand the workplace, if you're putting a bunch of hexagon-shaped bins over, that doesn't mean a lot to me, right? I want to understand it based on this particular space in this particular building or associate with this particular asset. And so there's a series of attributes in our data model that can help you out. In a way, we kind of flatten it out and we made the relationships explicit in the data. So, all the way from the unit level up to the site level, it's directly accessible in the data. So you can make use of that when you're wiring up your analytics on the geo event side. In fact, we recommend that.
Right. So this slide showing, just like you said, it's not the square binning or that, but you create a heat map.
That's right.
And on the exhibit floor now, you can really see which booth has been visited the most by the heat map, showing. I can tell you those ArcGIS Indoors in real time booth. So I have privilege to work on the most popular.
All right, you're trying to get a free dinner or something.
Application. All right, so I think we're about time and we're doing pretty good. I'm going to do a short wrap up. So yeah, I would say that ArcGIS Indoors raises awareness in many areas, right?
Yeah.
So first, it's a location aware, especially for indoors. We're gonna be able to learn what's surrounding us. For me, I sit in my wings, but there are a bunch of people that I don't even know the name, and what the expertise are and things like that. Yeah. The facility aware is that we build in smart logic for our app to know when it's entering the building, which building and which floor, as you see in the floor picker. Yeah, so that really interesting.
Yep.
I like that feature a lot. And the floor aware, I mentioned already that it is important to know what floor you are actually at, right? It's not just elevation. So adding the floor dimension or context into the Z dimension is important and is used for these information models. ArcGIS Indoors also time aware, right? So it's calendar, event, and walk time, and what near you, how far you're gonna get to the closest exit door in case of emergency, stuff like that. This is all important aspect. Social aware, it's fun. Yeah. We talk a lot about it.
Well, I have a couple customers doing pilot projects right now. They want to bring the track data back in, and and there are employees that want to opt in to being able to find their colleagues, not the assigned seat, the actual location. So it's like a colleague finder using ArcGIS Indoors, and it makes a lot of sense.
Well, think about smart workplaces where there's like hot desking everywhere, and everyone can sit everywhere. You just don't know where your colleagues are.
Right. And then the last two, security is important. And temporal, where we already talked about it, we can store in the big data and bring it back to play back or to look at the patterns and do analytics.
Like, and some of the other customers want to do like real-time and kind of rear-view mirror analysis of what amenities are actually being used, right? So if we have amenities that aren't being used, Marcotte pointed out our gym at Esri campus, does that mean that our gym needs help? Or does that mean that we just don't like working out? I'm not sure. So.
Okay, I'm going to show a little bit of the data.
Okay.
Let's see. Maybe switching back. Yeah. So this is the data collected for Esri. And you could see that when we bring into the scene layers, you could see the elevation or the floor separated pretty well, pretty clear, right? We have to bring the buildings in. Yeah. For the, this is the Redlands campus, and you could see that all the track points that we collected for different locations. And the heat map. I use the web app builder to show this one. Yeah. And then this is for the San Diego data last year. You might be wondering who is walking on that path.
Yeah.
It was me who went to get in there.
Yeah, well, on that note, maybe you mind switching for a second, and I can show them how we lock that down. So if you go to 4, we created, let me go to extend, my apologies. So there's a few tiers in terms of how we control that. So I'll mirror display. And so here's doc from the private beta version, so it's only changed slightly. We have this thing called tracking zones in the data model, and you just sketch in, where you want to be able to do device tracking, and then the implication is where you don't want to do it, as well. So you just sketch that in, and on the phone, you probably saw it when we went into the settings for the mobile application. The user, by default, it's turned off. So, if you're providing the phone as part of some corporate workflow, right? You have to turn this on to use it because it's about safety in enclosed spaces or something like that. Okay, you turn it on, or you turn it on because you want to opt into like the benefits that you're getting in terms of social cohesion with your colleagues at work, right? So you just want to do it. So then that's a next step, and then the other is, we have these other areas called dead zones where we don't track within it because these are like illogical places to track. Like in the atrium area in a multi-story stairwell, right? Well, you shouldn't have a blue dot in the middle of the atrium when you're on the second floor, right? Because that would mean you're falling. Yeah. So,
I'll think about like restrooms.
Oh, restrooms. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to track people.
So actually, we should add
that's right.
Privacy aware.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's multiple levels, right? And just implementing this with customers, you'll wind up getting into, they're going to need to develop a governance model, right? In fact, we're developing kind of a fact sheet similar to trust.arcgis because we're just getting these questions
all the time.
All the time. Yep.
All right, that's it from my talk. Are you anything to add, or we can open for questions?
I'll show one other thing since my screen is still up. So let me go back. Yeah, so this is, and you can reintroduce the data back into your map. So this isn't a heat map, but people want to see things like The density of the crowd, right, at the cafe at lunchtime. I mean, it goes from the banal to the super serious, right? So it could be incident response at an airport in the security area when the security zone gets overfilled and you have to flex in staff to handle it. Or it could be somebody that just is like, I don't want to waste 20 minutes standing in line for a hamburger today, right? So I'm going to continue working, and I'm just going to monitor this till the crowd count gets down in the cafe at Esri. So, and this example just shows me hovering around my office in the third floor in Building O, and realizing that, man, I need to hurry up and get over to Building Q, or I'm going to miss my presentation. So, that's all that I have.
All right. All right, so we're going to open for questions and discussion. If anybody ask any, go ahead.
What level of effort is imported to the building and one, number two, you directly
I'll take it.
Yeah.
So we're trying to reduce all right, so the question was, what is the level of effort just to get the core workplace map together from CAD, or can you import Revit directly? So we built a tool to import the data. It takes about 3 minutes per floor plan to import. So CAD is just a bunch of graphics, right? And so we have to process that and go, these are spaces, and let's take the ANO and build intelligence into that. And then we'll take the sum of all the spaces in the line work and make a floor outline. Then we'll add all the floors together and call that a building outline, all right? And then pull in relevant details and close doors that are open for further network processing. So we've tried to make that pretty straightforward. There's like an Excel mapping table now that you use just to kind of map target GIS Indoors features from source CAD layers, right? So what we recommend is that that's something the customer should fill out because they know their CAD better than we do. And it may be an opportunity for consulting to provide advice to the customer if they're not even familiar with their own CAD. But we've built a partner ecosystem to process it at scale and cost. So to give you an idea, for a airport, right? Looking at a big database of airports data, it's about, if I'm going to process 10 floor plans, I don't care what size they are, it's just the number, 10 floor plans into the Indoors data model to create points of interest, spaces, detail lines, floor outline, building outline, as well as to create the network data set, it would be about $9,700. And that would just be for Esri doing it. Right, so imagine if we handed that off to partners who can do it at half the cost or less than the Esri professional services version of it. So the price has come down dramatically, right? I mean, to do a network data set for a campus the size of Esri, doing that by hand would take about a week's worth of effort. And then for Revit, you can bring in Revit directly, but in an odd way, it doesn't have the things you would want to manage the workplace. There is not natively a building shell. There's not natively, spaces. There's not natively a floor outline. So we have to create these things. And we're working with the 3D team and Chris Andrews and others to make sure that the things that Indoors customers want do show up in that model. And in fact, we're also working with other partners who think, well, I could add these 3 or 4 special spices, cumin or whatever, to my Revit so that I could, essentially create the network as a result of having a Revit model. So does that help answer the question? Okay. So for now, we do have a really cool workflow where we can tame Revit so that you can at least output a DWG that has really robust annotation where we can strip the intelligence out so that it works directly with the tool that we've already built for CAD, which sounds kind of odd, but it works great. So,
more questions or comment? All right.
Come on, 6 more minutes for questions.
Or you can come up after
Yeah.
this.
Just come up.
Just come up. Yeah. So thank you everyone for coming to attend our sessions.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.